The abandoned garage sat at the edge of town, covered in rust and broken windows. Most people didn't even slow down when they drove past it. They simply laughed and called it worthless. Daniel Carter, a hard-working single father raising his 10-year-old son Ethan, looked at the old building differently. After years of repairing cars in rented workshops, he dreamed of owning a place where nobody could force him out. When the abandoned garage went up for auction, Daniel used every dollar he had saved. Friends warned him not to do it. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," one of them said. But Daniel smiled. "Sometimes people only see what something is today. I see what it can become tomorrow." On the day he signed the papers, luxury automotive CEO Victoria Lawson happened to visit the neighboring property. Her company planned to buy land nearby for a new dealership. Looking at Daniel unlocking the rusty garage, she laughed. "You actually paid money for that?" Daniel nodded calmly. "I did." Victoria shook her head. "That garage isn't worth repairing. It's worth scrap metal." Several executives standing beside her laughed as well. Daniel simply replied, "Maybe. Or maybe people have forgotten how to recognize potential." Victoria walked away still smiling. "We'll see." The next morning Daniel and Ethan began cleaning. They removed truckloads of broken furniture, old engines, rusted shelves and decades of trash. Neighbors watched in disbelief. For weeks Daniel worked 18 hours every day. Instead of buying expensive equipment, he restored old tools himself. He rebuilt lifts. He repaired compressors. He painted the walls with Ethan every weekend. Little by little, the forgotten garage started looking alive again. One afternoon an elderly customer drove in with a classic Mustang that every local repair shop had refused to touch. "They all said it's beyond saving," the man sighed. Daniel smiled. "Let's prove them wrong." 3 days later the engine roared back to life. The owner couldn't believe it. Word spread quickly across town.
Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Enjoy the video.
Soon vintage collectors began bringing Daniel impossible restoration projects. Cars that had sat abandoned for decades left his garage looking brand new. Customers waited weeks just to get an appointment. Meanwhile, Victoria's luxury dealership struggled. Her technicians only wanted quick repairs. Nobody specialized in classic restorations. Customers quietly started choosing Daniel instead. Victoria couldn't understand why. One afternoon she secretly visited his garage. She expected chaos. Instead she found a spotless workshop filled with organized tools, smiling employees and grateful customers. Every vehicle inside looked like a masterpiece. She watched Daniel patiently teaching young apprentices instead of shouting at them. One customer walked over. "I drove 6 hours because everyone says Daniel's the best mechanic in the state." Victoria remained silent. Months passed. A famous television host featured Daniel's restoration work online. Millions watched a forgotten muscle car transformed into showroom condition. Within days, collectors from across the country began calling. Daniel hired more workers. Most were people other companies had refused to employ. Single parents. Veterans. Young mechanics needing a second chance. His little garage became the biggest employer in the neighborhood. Then something unexpected happened. Victoria's company landed a contract restoring an extremely rare collector vehicle worth several $1,000,000. Her own technicians accidentally damaged a critical handmade component. Replacement parts no longer existed. Without fixing it, her company would lose the contract and face enormous penalties. Every expert refused the job. Someone finally whispered one name. Daniel Carter. Victoria hated the idea. But she had no choice. She walked into the same garage she once mocked. Daniel looked up. "What brings you here?" Victoria placed the damaged component on his workbench. "I need your help." Daniel examined it quietly. "This isn't impossible." Her eyes widened. "You can fix it?" "I believe so." For the next 16 hours Daniel worked without stopping. He recreated missing pieces by hand, using traditional techniques few mechanics still remembered. When he finished, the part looked factory new. Independent inspectors couldn't tell it had ever been damaged. Victoria stared in disbelief. How did you learn this? Daniel smiled. My father owned a tiny garage just like this. People laughed at him too. She looked around. Every wall carried signs of hard work. Every employee respected him. Every customer trusted him. She suddenly realized she judged everything by appearances. A week later the restoration won international awards. Reporters surrounded Victoria asking how her company succeeded. Instead of taking credit, she pointed toward Daniel. He saved the entire project. The interview went viral. Soon investors, collectors and manufacturers lined up outside Daniel's garage. His business expanded into multiple restoration centers across the country. Years later, business magazines estimated his company was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. One afternoon Victoria returned to visit. This time she wasn't wearing an expensive business suit. She walked through the garage smiling. I came to apologize. Daniel looked at her. For what? For saying this place was only worth scrap metal. Daniel glanced around the busy workshop where dozens of mechanics worked proudly. Then he smiled. It probably was. Victoria looked confused. Daniel continued. But dreams aren't built from perfect buildings. They're built by people who refuse to quit. Victoria extended her hand. Friends? Daniel shook it. Friends. As Ethan watched from the office window, he smiled proudly. The garage everyone once laughed at had become a symbol of hope, proving that the greatest value is never found in old buildings or broken machines, but in the determination of the people willing to rebuild them.